Monopoly by Grit.
Welcome to Monopoly by Grit, yet another podcast episode just for you. Today we have a special guest all the way from Queensland. His name is Spence from Choice Home. Thank you, Bailey. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure being on here.
Did you get a surprise by landing in Melbourne in terms of the weather?
A little bit. Coming from the Gold Coast, it's a bit warm up there, but I do like the cold, but I probably could have wore something a bit warmer. So.
All right. Before we get into it, have you played Monopoly as a kid, Bailey?
A few times. It always seems to put me to jail, but
was that your favorite spot to be?
no, I didn't like it. But I always just seem to roll that number. But
any strategies as a kid you were employing to get multiple properties?
Buy. I always just tried to buy all of them, but yeah, that was always the plan.
That's more relevant in the game we are playing in right now, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Kind of realize that.
And as I said before, that was the whole rationale behind this podcast, and the guys came up with Monopoly as the topic. All right, let's talk about Queensland. The moment Olympics was announced, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, everything shifted. I felt everything shifted in the Queensland market. People started buying, the Google search ranking went up, and everyone got to know what Queensland is for, and everyone got excited, I feel. What are your thoughts in terms of what exactly happened once the Olympics was announced?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what happened with, I guess, Sydney. Obviously, Melbourne was a bit before that.
Yeah.
But it really just put us on the map when it comes to, firstly, property, but not just being like a hidden city. It's actually really built up now.
Yeah.
And being based around Brisbane, Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast, people are going to firstly be able to see everything that Queensland has to offer.
Yeah.
But all the infrastructure there that's going to be implemented, and what happened with both Melbourne and Sydney is you saw property prices before and after the Olympics.
Yeah.
Growth, and that just means more jobs are going to be coming to the area. And it's I just think it really put us on the map. When it came to it. So yeah.
And also I felt people got more confident about investing in Queensland, especially people interstate, because really what happened with Sydney is always back of their minds.
Yeah.
So Sydney, the median price is 1.5. I mean, even if you go over an hour away, you are spending over $1 million in Sydney. So which can happen in Brisbane too. Brisbane median price is hitting $1 million pretty soon. So we are probably 8 years away from Olympics. And as you go to Brisbane, you can see it's all happening right now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I do like to see that because during like the Sydney Olympics, you saw there was a study done. It was like 1997 to 2001. Property prices went up drastically throughout that time. Obviously, it was a booming period.
Yeah.
But there was just more infrastructure that was being implemented, the jobs itself too, which is always what investors like to see.
Yeah.
You just follow the money, and that's what really happened with Sydney, and we're predicting the same is going to happen with Brisbane. And pretty much following on since the announcement, we've seen increase in interest up here. So it's been good.
Follow the money. I love that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, even talking about infrastructure developments. So Sydney Olympic Park, if you take for example, we all use those facilities for events and so many things, and that's like a hub people come into, which will happen in Brisbane for all those developments which they're doing right now in Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, and Brisbane.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
and then we had COVID, and then we saw over 50,000 people flying across to Brisbane because people hated Melbourne for having over 240 days of lockdown. Yep. What impact do you think that had on Queensland?
Well, there's 50,000 more jobs that we just brought up to Queensland. It's a good way to, I guess, a good point to start at.
Yeah.
And during COVID, obviously, like everything went a bit quiet. But since then, we've just really been behind on construction, and it's been a big game of catch up.
Yeah.
Especially when you put 50,000 people into I guess, Brisbane and Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast, you need to find somewhere to house them, and it's just seemed like a big catch-up game since then.
Yeah.
Just to firstly house those people, either be second-hand properties or new properties. It hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
And it's just big catch-up game since then.
Yeah.
And it's just pushed the prices up, and especially when you can, as you mentioned earlier, in Sydney, $1.5 million median house price, they can pretty much buy 2 properties up in Brisbane, depending on areas and everything like that when they move up. So they can buy one to live in and then buy one as an investment.
Yeah.
So they get a lot more bang for their buck, and that's what we found. So they can either buy a high-end property closer to the city, or they can buy 2 properties, one to live in and one to invest in. So the market's just been really intense with that side of thing. Yeah.
And also I feel it's a big eye-opener for a lot of Australians, because people in Melbourne, they never thought of going anywhere else interstate. People in Sydney, they've never, I mean, still they are, but when everyone saw people moving across states in that kind of numbers, I think it was a huge eye-opener. It brings up new opportunities, new jobs, and new lifestyles, I guess. And I'm sure people who moved up there will never come back to this icy cold weather in Melbourne when they can enjoy such beautiful weather over there.
Yeah, I agree. I do love Melbourne though. Melbourne's an awesome place. But when Gold Coast, you've got the waves, you've got the ocean, you've got the hinterland and everything like that too. And I feel like it's one of those places once you live there, might not be able to move away. Plus you have amazing sports up there too. Not as good as Melbourne, but it's the place to be, and especially when you can buy property for a fraction of the price of Sydney. That's where we saw a lot of them move up and really put their money elsewhere and go, okay, well, this is the lifestyle I want now and we'll live with. So, yeah.
I mean, if you look at from 21, 22 to now, there has been a huge jump in prices. We used to sell stuff under 600 at the time, but now you're looking at 700 plus for everything, wherever you look at. And that just shows the demand. And also that just shows the huge gap between the demand and supply. I think that really started from that interstate migration during COVID, and then they could never catch up with the supply issues and everything which is going on.
Yeah, pretty much you summed it up there. It's supply and demand with this kind of case. We've got a lack of land, which is the big one, and that's where we've seen the increase in prices.
Yeah.
Because land that was selling for low 2s, or even mid 2s a couple of years ago is now up near your $350,000 to $400,000 mark.
Right.
And that's where people are seeing the growth, and that's just been within a short time. So it's the land prices, and we won't see it slowing down anytime soon with the way things are going, because there's a huge interest up in Queensland at the moment.
Yeah.
And the lack of land is pretty remarkable. So yeah, it's supply and demand in this situation.
It is real.
Yes, 100%. Outnumbered. So.
Yeah. So now that the Queensland government is gearing up for the Olympics and there's so many projects going on, let's discuss about the impact this will have towards the property markets, and also what benefits people would have in the long term.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so you've got roughly 90,000 jobs which the Olympics will create over the course of 20 years.
Wow.
So that's firstly a lot of people that need to be housed, whether they already are living there or are going to be moving up, or from overseas or from different states. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's 90,000 people you need to house. But also on top of that, you've got infrastructure. So you've got the different stadiums which are going to either be like redeveloped or new stadiums are coming into place. But with the Olympics, I think it's pretty cool. Unlike Sydney, where it was all in Sydney, like the Olympic Park there.
Yeah.
With the Brisbane Olympics, you've got stuff all over Queensland. So you've even got some stuff up in Townsville. Like I believe they were doing the initial, like the prelim soccer games up there.
Right.
But most of it will be held between Sunshine Coast, Brisbane and the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Having campuses on all three.
Yeah.
So people will really be able to see what Queensland's like. Obviously, Sunshine Coast, Brisbane and Gold Coast are really nice places to be, but it's mostly the infrastructure, which is just going to create tons of jobs.
Yeah.
And more demand and less supply, as we mentioned earlier. It's just going to keep driving prices up. So, yeah.
And also there will be new stadiums. I mean, most of the stadiums are being redeveloped and re-enhanced, including the Gabba. But what this really does is when it's on Sunshine Coast, Brisbane and Gold Coast, all the infrastructure like the road networks, all that will be pretty slick by the time Olympic is in place. And that creates different, second-hand nature of the jobs coming in for tradies and all those things. And we were talking about the other day about the logistics hub, right? So things like that will really create so much of jobs, and that will definitely drive the property prices in those areas.
100%, yeah. Like with Coomera, for example, that was, I guess, an area or suburb that was built out years ago. But people have really started to see the traffic build up there. So you've got new highways and infrastructure there. So the Coomera connectors come in to, I guess, accommodate for all those cars and populations which have been built up. We'll keep seeing projects and infrastructure like that to, I guess, help move people along in the highway and house the population. So
yeah. And it'll be good for tourism too. I'm sure a lot of people will come to see the Olympics, and then there's a diverse set of activities which will happen in the logistics, accommodation, property, in all those sectors. So it's good for the economy overall.
100%. And I read something the other day. It's going to be over billions of dollars that it pumps into the economy of the Olympics.
Right.
So that's a big sum of money, and the government's going to be helping out fund everything.
Yeah.
But I think it's just going to be positives from the economic point of view, because it just comes down to jobs, and there's going to be a lot of them over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing for the economy. So,
and even the Olympic Village, which they're building for the sports people, I think that's pretty close to the city, isn't it? It's very close to, I can't remember the name of the place. I think was it Hamilton?
Yeah, Hamilton, which is pretty much next to the airport, or west of the highway there at the airport, Brisbane Airport, and the Port of Brisbane. So it's quite a nice spot, and from pretty much everywhere in Brisbane, everywhere seems to be within a kind of 30-minute bubble. So if you're up north, it's 30 minutes to the CBD. If you're south, you're looking at 30 minutes anyway. Yeah. Because it's like around a kind of city, so everything's going to be close and kind of compact. So
I think it'll be amazing overall. It's good for the economy, good for the property market, more importantly, good for the investors.
100%, yeah.
But the time to act is right now.
Yeah, best time, so.
All right, let's go into, you've been working with the builder. Let's talk about the construction process in Queensland, because I know it's a little bit different than Queensland. Let's talk about Queensland to start with. What sort of process which goes through from the deposit signing to the handover?
Yep. So with our stuff, because we do our own developments too.
Yeah.
So we'll purchase land, subdivide it, and then put pretty much house and land packages onto them. So with those, it's just an initial $1,000 deposit on the land. Yeah. You lock it in, and then once the land registers, if it isn't already, once it registers, we'll pretty much have everything already ordered once you've gone unconditional on your property. And everything's seamless with us because we've got our own systems and software in place. So pretty much a click of a button and a few phone calls, we've got everything ordered. And then we'll be booking in times along the way for trades to go out. Yeah. So it's all seamless. It's roughly 5 to 6 month build time for a slab on ground property. But in between that, so stuff that up a bit, but you've got a council time in between, which is roughly 2 to 6 weeks. Yeah. So 2 to 6 weeks in council. Once it comes out of council, then you're straight on site and building, and that will be the 5 to 6 month period. Yeah. Nice and quick, so they can get their tenant in there renting it out.
And then in terms of the construction process, you put the slab in, and you guys still use timber, or some parts of Queensland use steel or bricks?
Yeah, so we use timber for our frames. We've got great suppliers who we work with forever, but some builders will use steel frames. What we've found, timber will always be really good and reliable, especially with our suppliers. So,
do some builders use double brick, just like in Perth, or not really?
Not too sure. Might depend on the design. I mean, the area too. Yeah. So yeah.
Then it goes to the lockup, and then how about the roof? Is it mainly tiles, or is it?
Yeah, that'll depend on
Colorbond.
design too. Some of them will be colorbond, some will be tile.
Yeah.
So yeah,
What's most preferred by the Queenslanders?
probably colorbond.
Right. Okay.
But tile's always pretty good. So yeah, both pretty good, and it is just the design.
Yeah.
And everything we do is master planned anyway.
Yeah.
So we don't have like 10 colorbond roofs in a row.
Yeah.
We like to make it a community, so you've at least got colorbond, tile, different color schemes and everything like that too.
Yeah.
So a good mix.
Yeah. So I captured few important aspects for investors who wants to invest in Queensland. Say, for example, in Queensland, you put $1,000 deposit on the land, especially the lands you guys hold. And then your next deposit is once the land is settled, and then you pay the 5% to the builder, right?
Correct.
Whereas in Victoria, you put $1,000 to reserve, 5% on the land, 5% on the build, sign contracts, then you settle the land.
Yeah.
So the out-of-pocket upfront cost is much higher in Victoria as opposed to Queensland.
Yeah.
And in terms of the construction process over here, it's foundation, frame, mainly timber, lock-up, fix, and final, which includes landscaping. Although I don't think there's a change over there, but then with the material which uses, especially roofing, as we spoke about, majority of Victorians prefer tiles as opposed to colorbond, whereas especially with the weather, Queenslanders prefer colorbond, I guess.
Yeah, interesting. Bit of a difference.
Yeah. But that's an important point because as an investor, your outlay is only $1,000 until you settle the land, and then where we go.
Yeah, correct.
Provided that you have the finance approval in place.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And typical build time, you guys are clocking around 6 months right now?
Yep.
Which is fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, get in. We've always been nice and quick, but it's just because of our systems we've got, so it's nice and streamlined.
Yeah.
And bulk ordering we've got in place, so roughly 6 months for the builds.
Right.
So yeah.
We touched upon this before. The rental crisis in Queensland is real, I guess.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, we also own a property management company.
Yeah.
With over 3,000 property managements up in Queensland. You've probably seen it too.
Yeah.
There's pretty much just tenants screaming out for properties at the moment.
Yeah.
Like you've got multiple per property.
Yeah.
And we're already behind on construction. So due to, I guess, firstly overseas, but then interstate migration, we were behind, and we're just going to keep falling further behind when it comes to building new homes, because we're not building enough to house all these people moving into Queensland. Right. So it's already, I guess, bad enough as it is, and it will get worse. So there's already just lines of people waiting for properties. So yeah, it will get worse too.
So there's a clear lack of supply in terms of new properties coming into the market. That's through construction. At the same time, new listings coming into the market.
Yeah.
I think it's the same for sales as well as rentals.
Yeah. Yep. It's both pretty, I guess, I'll use the word bad again. New property, it just seems like there's not enough land being developed out there at the moment.
Yeah.
When we look out there and speak to developers, there is quite a lack of land.
Yeah.
And they're finding the same too. We are lucky because we have a team who will go out and source big blocks to buy and develop, which is nice. But it is tough because when we do want to go and, I guess, find new areas and everything like that, there's not much out there to really work with. And that's really what's going to be driving, I guess, the supply shortfall downwards over the next couple of years. And that will keep the demand up there too, because people need properties and there's not enough firstly being built. Yeah. And there's not enough on the secondhand market to supply people who want to buy now.
In terms of property management arm of the business, do you guys manage in Gold Coast as well as in Brisbane?
So Gold Coast up to Brisbane.
Right.
Yep. And then out to Ipswich, so kind of that triangle.
Right, okay. And where do you see the most demand by the renters? Is it Gold Coast or Brisbane?
Good mix. It really depends on, I guess, the renter itself. So if they're like a university student, you'll find that a university student will rent pretty much down the road a one-bedroom unit to a university. But in suburbia, which is where we are developing and building most of our land at the moment, you find 4-bedroom houses are just the best at the moment. You've got big families that need pretty much to get stuff close to schools, shops, and their work.
Yeah.
And when they're within like 5 minutes and all of that, they're happy to pay, I guess, a premium, especially when there's another 10 people waiting at the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have found that too. I mean, people are not scared to pay a premium and get into the property that we want because there is a huge lack of supply of rental properties.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
This is a dream situation for an investor to invest in Queensland. So it's awesome. And in terms of, if you look at the regions where we should target to invest in Queensland, what regions are blossoming right now in your opinion?
Yeah. Well, with us, we've invested tens of millions worth of money or dollars in Logan Reserve, Park Ridge.
Yeah.
We've just followed the money there because you've got huge infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
We've worked there for the past 5 years, so we've developed roughly 3 estates there.
Yeah.
We've got 3 we're doing this year, but we followed the money. So we've got a big logistics hub, the Crestmead Logistics Hub, which is roughly 2 minutes to all our estates. That's going to create over 6,000 jobs once it's complete.
Wow.
And they're just huge factories full of trucks, suppliers, and everything like that. And they're just starting.
Yeah.
And you see all these buildings go up and it's just like, wow. Yeah. So that's a big one. But we've got great schools in the area. There's a new one going in opposite one of the previous estates we've done in Park Ridge. And there's a new Woolies opening up down the road with 3 or 4 specialty shops. So like a Snap Fitness, I think it was a BWS too.
Yeah.
But when you see that kind of stuff, you just see jobs. So we've followed the money, I guess, where governments or council are spending.
Yeah.
And we've invested tens of millions in Logan Reserve, Park Ridge. We've got more land there to last us, I guess, the next 4 or 5 years at the moment too. So
yeah, beautiful. How about the northern region, Morayfield? I see there's a huge lack of supply there as well.
Yeah, we're always looking for land up there.
Yeah.
We've done some previously last year.
Yeah.
So if something came up there too, I think that would be something we'll definitely snap up. We do keep our trades local. So this year we're focusing purely on these areas because we've seen, I guess, low vacancy rates, high rent returns, which mostly would have come down to all the jobs in the area.
Yeah.
But I would agree up north too. You're looking about 45 minutes to the city. It is closer to the water too, similar like your Coomera, Pimpama areas, which did really well. And you've got a lot of infrastructure up there like North Lakes and everything too. So the great spot too.
Yeah. And I read an article recently from PEXA talking about demand and supply in the eastern seaboard. In Queensland, especially Morayfield, has a lack of supply. The deficit is about 3,000 houses per annum for the next 5 years. Yeah. Gold Coast, it's worse. It's close to 4,000. And the Brisbane Council is, I think, close to 5,000. So it's a good story for an investor for sure.
100%. And don't see that happening. It's we're going to be well behind. And that will be the best bit for investors because they will just see money being made because people are willing to buy, but they can't. So.
Correct. Another recent activity we saw was apartments in Gold Coast, especially over here in Victoria. There's, especially Melbourne, there's so much of apartments, especially in the city, right? There's a huge supply. Yeah. Whereas Gold Coast, there's not many supply, but we have seen apartments appreciating in value too, just like houses.
Yeah. I think with the Gold Coast apartments too is because most of them are, I guess, premium. Like you're on the water there, you get a nice big apartment. Yeah. And you've probably got shops within minutes. They've always done really well. Yeah. We've just done an apartment project or finished like the first stage of one in Coomera on the Gold Coast. Yeah. We've got another 2 stages we plan on releasing. And though the first stages did really well. So it's exciting to see the Gold Coast booming like it is. Yeah. And I think that has been due to the interstate migration because they can get a nice property close to pretty much everything. Yeah. And I think that's what's really driven it on the Gold Coast.
Right. Where do you see the market in the next 5 years, Bailey, in Queensland?
It'll be going up because when we've got the development team And when they're purchasing the land, they're not purchasing it for this or next year.
Yeah.
They're purchasing it for 5-6 years down the track.
Yeah.
So when they're looking at pricing, they're having to predict firstly what the market's going to be at, what it's going to cost to cut the land up and get everything developed.
Yeah.
And it will be a fair bit more for a block of land at least.
Yeah.
In 5 years' time than it will be now.
Yeah.
And the houses, we can't fully predict the pricing of those, but the land alone will be a lot more than it is now. So the market will be going up. Yeah,
I mean, if you look at the fundamentals, there's a lack of land supply. There's a huge deficit between supply and demand. There's huge infrastructure projects happening. Olympics is coming up. It's all positives. And then I think for us to bridge the gap between the supply and demand is going to take a while, because there are practical issues out there.
Yes.
Which has to be sorted out. So there is a rental crisis. There's a lack of supply. So I think it's all positive.
Yeah.
Up there.
100%. That's what we've found too. It's pretty much just everything set.
Yeah.
And stone for the investor. It doesn't look good if we're going to be in terms of catching up.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
But we'll just keep trying our best to see what we can do.
It was lovely having you, Bailey. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
There you go. From the horse's mouth, from Queensland, Bailey Spence. You heard it right. Queensland will be booming for the next 5 years. Thanks for watching. See you in the next episode.
Monopoly by Grit.